Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupadam Sabharadajikaya Slow Days at the Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupadam Sabharadajikaya Slow Days at the Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text 25. Gatim jigi shatapado. Ruru hate bekamikam. Padbyam yagya swayam havyam. Karma bi kriyate nribi. Gatim jagi shatapado. Ruru hate bekamikam. Padbyam yagya swayam havyam. Karma bi kriyate nirbi. Gatim jagishita pada. Ruru hate bekamikam. Padbyam yagya swayam havyam. Karma bi kriyate nirbi. Gatim, movement. Jagishita, so desiring. Pado, the legs. Ruruhate, being manifested. Abikamikam, purposeful. Padbyam, from the legs. Yagya, Lord Vishnu. Swayam, personally himself. Havyam, the duties. Karmabhi, by one's occupational duty. Kriyate, cause to be done. Nirbhi, by different human beings. Translation. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested. And from the legs, the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Purport. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty, and such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of the world. People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but is also visible outside the cities from one place to another, or from one city to another, by different means of vehicles. Men are moving by cars and rails on the roads, by subways within the earth, and by planes in the sky for the purpose of business success. But in all these movements, the real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged, the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human activity. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know this secret, all their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control. And therefore, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and thus they have taken it for granted that this life, as presently manifested under the conditions of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge, by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that at every step they should try to execute sacrifices toward the path of world peace. The Bhagavad Gita also advises the same secret in the following verses. Sway sway karmanya bidata sam siddhim labhate nara sakarma niratat siddhim yata vindanti touch trinu yata pravittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manava. The Lord said to Arjuna, just hear from me how one can attain the highest perfection in life simply by discharging his specified occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshiping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is all-pervading and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity. There is no harm in having different propensities in life, because every human being is proportionally independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupations. But one should make it a point in life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point that by his work and the result of his labor, he serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities, expert in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. For performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body, because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another. And therefore the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yajnas. Translation again. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This chapter entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions always intrigued me ever since I first started reading it in 1972, before even living in a temple or an ashram. I thought, this is a very ambitious title. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. But upon reading and rereading this section of Bhagavatam, you become impressed by how every aspect of the material creation is under some kind of control. Sometimes we may say, I would just rather hear about the Lord's personal leelas, lifting Govardhan Hill, and especially his activities with the cowherd boys and the cowherd girls. Why, then, is there such extensive description of the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Chiradakashaya Vishnu, and their relationship with the material energy, how they interact with the material energy and infuse all the material elements without at all being affected? We may think this is not so important. But then again, we notice that Bhagavatam proceeds step by step to the 10th canto, to the description of the personal leelas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can, according to the Acharyas, look at this situation from different angles according to your spiritual development. As explained earlier in the Bhagavatam, these activities of creation, which sometimes, not sometimes, but often can appear very technical, these are necessary for beginning devotees so that they develop some appreciation for how everything is under the personal control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are submerged in material activities need to hear about how they're under control at every step. Each one of their senses is under control. There's no freedom as we think of in our illusory conceptions. We're not free to do whatever we like, in that, yes, you can do whatever you like, but you'll get the appropriate reactions. So we're being trained to see the full picture, because as residents of Kali Yuga, or as I like the term Prabhupada uses, denizens of Kali Yuga, we think that because I'm independent in my mind, that means I'll be independent in action. So in your mind, you can imagine yourself doing so many things, and we do that all the time. You can soar here and there on the chariot of your mind. But when you perform action, you're completely controlled in the most minute way. But yet, we can see that in this age of darkness, people are so bewildered, human beings are so confused, they think that because I'm free in my mind to think this and that, I'll be free on the physical plane of activity to do whatever I like, and there'll be no reaction. And sometimes people complain that this law of karma means no human freedom whatsoever. Every time you do something, it's bound up with what you did in the past. So therefore, according to your understanding, according to your presentation of karma, we have zero scope to make any choice. But that is not the fact. The example that devotees like to give is if you buy a ticket for a flight, just like I flew from Auckland to Brisbane on Friday. So once you board the flight, based on your choice, you're captured, you're caught for a 3-hour flight. So in response to what you already did, you bought the ticket, you went through security, you were checked in and all that kind of thing, and then you're on the plane. So by your choice, you're on the plane, and then once you're on the plane, that's it. You can't just mid-flight jump out the window. So you're bound by your choice that you made to fly on that flight. But during the flight, you can make other choices. You can cause a ruckus. Nope, I refuse to wear my mask. Whatever you think of that. Still, you're supposed to wear a mask. In some countries, you're supposed to wear a mask on flights, so you can make a rage about it. I was just reading the statistic in the USA that, about road rage. Well, now they have a thing called flight rage. You rage at the flight attendants, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? So it's gone up from in the USA, from 200 cases of that a year to 4,000 cases a year. But once you're on the flight, you're on the flight. It's the result of your previous activities, your choices. But during the flight, you can make further complications. You can cause a ruckus, flight rage, or you can meet someone nice who's seated next to you and strike up a conversation, even build up a friendship. I've heard a person's even marrying the person who was seated next to them on the flight. Or you can decide, I'll watch the crazy movies, or I won't, or I'll eat this, but I won't eat that. So many choices are possible based on your previous choice. So at every moment you're being bound to previous decisions while you have the opportunity to further entangle yourself by your making new decisions. So let us consider the movement of the legs, which have been highlighted here as the most important of the karmendriyas, the working senses. You have the rectum, the genital, the legs, the arms, and the mouth, in the way that the mouth vibrates speech. The tongue, when it tastes, is considered gyanendriya, knowledge-acquiring sense. But the mouth, when considered talking, that's a karmendriya, working sense. So of these 5 working senses, the legs are considered to be most important because movement is essential for occupational duties. Now, when we hear occupational duties, we have to keep in mind the Vedic classification of occupations, which is not just willy-nilly. It's talking about varnashram dharma, which is the symptom of a real civilized society. Someone is acting as a brahmana, as a kshatriya, as a vaishya, sudra. You can still take the spirit of this message in the willy-nilly world we have today, that whatever your occupation is, you use it for Yajna Vishnu, sacrifice for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But at the same time, we should bear in mind, Krishna has his own system for organizing human affairs. And because it's Krishna's system, it's the best system. Chaturvarnam mayastristam guna karma vibhagasha. It's a material system, but it comes from Krishna. Just like the whole Vishvarupa, the universal form that you're hearing about. It's an authorized vision of the universe. It's material, but it's authorized materialism. For those who have difficulty conceiving of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Sham Sundar, his two-handed form, those who have that difficulty and find it easier to look at the whole world around them and see the form of the Lord as that. Therefore, there's this authorized vision. Okay, you can meditate in this way and gradually make some advancement. But then you have the amazing reality that not only is the Vishvarupa an authorized meditation, it's a construct. Just like we're talking about, Varnashram Dharma is a construct. It's a material construct, but it's Krishna's own construct. Similarly, the Vishvarupa, the universal form, is Krishna's construct, but sometimes Krishna will show it, just like he did to Arjuna. So it gets a little complicated, doesn't it? Sometimes we hear the Vishvarupa, the universal form, is just imaginary, it's material. Other times we read about it in the middle of Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 11, Arjuna asked, let me see that universal form, not for his own benefit, but for the sake of persons who think that two-handed Krishna is just an ordinary person. So, again, Krishna can appear as universal form, even though it's a construct. Krishna can do what he likes. So the legs are considered so important because they allow you to perform yajna, move here and there, performing activities of sacrifice for the pleasure of Vishnu. But you see in the purport, Prabhupada brings everything into the contemporary context while preserving the timeless wisdom. He's also bringing things into the contemporary context. Look at what human beings are doing these days. They're going here and there, but what's the purpose of it all? Just like if you go to the zoo and study the animals. I used to do that years ago. You see, monkeys are very busy. There's no doubt about it. They're moving as they swing from tree to tree, chattering. But what's the point of all their activity? That's why we have that expression, that saying, monkey business. So Prabhupada's pointing out in the purport, what are human beings doing that's really so different from monkey business? Human beings, okay, they're moving within the earth through tunnels and subways. They're moving through the air in terms of airplanes. They're moving through the water, ships and submarines. They're moving in so many ways, but what's the purpose? It's all the same. How to try to have as a comfortable life as possible. That means how to satisfy my senses as much as possible, and that's it. So therefore we read in the purport, but they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. This is a basic point that we can never drive home too much. Human life gives you a mission. And by jettisoning that mission, you just miss out on why you have a human body. And then you wonder, where's my peace? Where's world peace? Because they do not know this secret. All their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control. Not even sense gratification with control, but sense gratification without control. That's considered heaven on earth. Let me act with my senses however I like, and there'll be no reactions. Our mind dreams that. And then when material nature kicks back and gives us our reactions, when material nature kicks us, then we complain. How can this happen? What a tragedy. We don't see the whole system about how we're getting the reactions to our actions. And because we're wasting this human body, nature responds. You're violating the purpose that you've been given by your having a human body. Therefore, especially, you must be shown that you're driving up the wrong road. Just like when you're driving on the highway and you may see some exit off to this side or that side, and there are these big signs in red, wrong way, wrong way. It happens. Sometimes people actually enter the wrong way into opposing traffic on a motorway. It happened a few months ago in New Zealand, in Wellington. It was like 5:30 in the morning. Obviously, the driver was intoxicated and drove up onto the motorway the wrong way, entering into oncoming traffic, and caused a collision of 5 cars. What if our whole life is like that? Wrong way, wrong way. I really appreciate especially one point made in this purport about, but such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge, by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. Do you really accept that? No one is happy in this material civilization. Come on. Sounds like an exaggeration, doesn't it? I've been happy. I remember. I remember times when I was happy. Let's see. Last year I think there were some moments. There was a weekend last year. I was happy. Or maybe I wasn't happy, but I was, feeling better than usual. We call that happiness. This momentary flash in the sky, like seeing a shooting star in the sky. I was giving the example in Brisbane, how you're walking with your friends at night, whether in the countryside or in the city, and you happen to look up and see in the night sky a shooting star. And you turn to your friends, and what do you say? Did you see that? Did you see that? And your friends look up. No, I don't see anything. Well, I saw it. I saw a shooting star. Oh, okay, all right. So happiness is like that. Did you see it? I had it. Oh, okay. Yeah, we want to see it because we want it too. So we'll back you. Yes, you were happy, and that gives us hope that we'll be happy. And why should we complain that it's flickering? Better than nothing, right? Oh, you Hare Krishnas are so tough. criticizing material happiness. Well, we know you want it yourself. we know you guys. You repeat those Bhagavad Gita verses, Dukkhalayam Shashvatam, the material world's temporary and miserable. But we know that you practically don't even memorize those verses anymore these days anyway. But when you do recite those verses, we know what you're thinking. You're hoping that by my reciting Bhagavad Gita, I'll get material happiness. So this material happiness thing really hangs us up. So Prabhupada's dealing with that in the purport. He says, the secret is that at every step they should try to execute sacrifices toward the path of world peace. It's a beautiful statement about bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the lifestyle of being able to, at every step, execute sacrifices toward world peace. I wonder if you ever thought about that. Because all your activities should be dedicated for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means all your activities are yajna, sacrifices, to bring about world peace. Now, sometimes people say, now, wait a minute. All the religions say that if you just do this, there'll be world peace and prosperity. But where else do you get such a cohesive presentation of lifestyle in every activity, so that not only are you peaceful, but you're bringing about world peace? This takes knowledge. In order to see this, you require knowledge. Otherwise, you can take the bhakti activities as just ritualistic, as just kind of activities of religious belief. I was speaking to the congregation in Brisbane about how nowhere in Bhagavad Gita, and you've heard me say it before, does Krishna ask you to believe in him. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam are not about religious belief. They're about the science of, at every step, with every activity, with every thought, with every deed, satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let me remind you, in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say in the beginning of the 7th chapter? Maya sakta manaparta yogam yujjan marashraya asamsayam samagram mam yata gasyasi tachtrinu. Now listen, Krishna tells Arjuna, right? Now listen, and what? I'm going to teach you religious belief? No. Now listen, and I will explain to you the science of how your consciousness can become attached to me. Everyone knows about what it's like to have your consciousness attached to someone or something, right? There's a specific process and a specific result. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, I'm going to teach you the science of how your consciousness can be attached to me. You'll know everything, and there won't be any doubt. Tachtrinu, just listen. So this is not religious belief. If you're wanting to become attached to someone or something, let's just say in this case, you want to be attached to someone. You don't go up to that person and say, now please tell me the process how I can believe in you. No, you discuss activities, you discuss how you both resonate, you discuss what pleases the other person and what angers the other person. A whole list you go down. Just like those who want to marry, they often have a checklist. And you want to see, does the other person tick all the boxes? Are you like this? Are you like that? Are you this? Are you that? There are various formulas. Vaisheshika Prabhu was telling me about one formula he recommends, he's found works for perfect marriages. The Beatles test. Do you like the Beatles? I didn't, but anyway. I guess that's why I'm not married. But anyway. As Mukunda Maharaj knows, I was a jazz fan. But you have these boxes, you know. Do you want children? How much money do you require? And of course, often, one of the persons will say, oh, don't worry, I'm low maintenance. Everyone likes to consider themselves as living simple, no matter how opulently they're living. So you have this checklist for how your consciousness can become attached to the other person. And it's not about religious belief. You know, how can I believe in you? No, how can I become attached to you? How can we exist harmoniously in a relationship? So this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. There's no question of just some theological assuming of theological doctrines. Arjuna, I'm going to give you a doctrine, and you'll be satisfied with this doctrine. No, Arjuna, I'm going to teach you how your consciousness can be attached to mine. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita presents a whole system encapsulated in Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, always think of me, become my devotee, so forth. So just think, amidst a world that's going more crazy every day, a devotee's activities are about executing sacrifices at every step, executing sacrifices toward the path of world peace. And your legs play such an important role. As we read, for performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body, because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another. And therefore, the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yajnas. Your legs have brought you to the temple. Even you may have driven or rode a motorbike or something. Still, it involves the legs. And by looking at what your legs are doing, you get some idea of what's going on in your life. The Shastra describes in quite a few cantos how with your legs you wander through material existence, tasting different varieties of happiness and distress. So you're moving, as we heard. You're moving on the land, you're moving within the earth, you're moving on the ocean, within the air, for the purpose of tasting happiness. And of course, you don't want distress, but it comes. So you're wandering throughout the material universe, experiencing different varieties of happiness and distress. So how to change those movements so that at every step you're executing yajna, sacrifice, for the pleasure of Vishnu. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu must be performed. But in our mind, we've made it all optional, right? Well, I think I'll do this bhakti thing for a while, and gives me some feeling of relief. But you always, often are thinking, I have my options, right? I'll stick with this bhakti as long as it seems to do something for me. But I'd still have a whole gamut, a whole range of other things I could be doing. And I probably will be doing those things after a few years. We see devotional service as being non-exclusive. And you can note that people feel put off these days about anything presented exclusively. Only by devotional service can I be understood. It sounds quite demanding, right? Only by devotional service. You say, well, wait a minute. Who can say such a thing? And why only by devotional service? As soon as someone says only these days, what do you think? No. No. If someone says to you, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if you know nothing about Krishna, nothing about theology, nothing about anything like that, your natural reaction is no. Well, you say no based on what? Just no. We have no idea. We have no knowledge. But anytime some statement of exclusivity is made, we just naturally respond because we're residents of Kali Yuga. We're denizens of Kali Yuga. Nope. Krishna says this. Nope. The regular principles are this. No. Except when I took initiation and made my vows, said yes. But otherwise, no. This is our disease. So we need a chapter like this, a series of chapters like this, to show us how at every step we're bound up, because we're so bewildered by this illusory conception of independence. I'm free. I'm free. And if anyone or anything checks our concept of freedom, we get angry. When driving around Brisbane, I saw the billboards, the signs, because it's election time, put up by one particular party. Freedom, freedom, freedom forever. Vote for this party. It's impossible. You can't, what to speak of freedom forever, you can't even get freedom today. You're bound up by Maya Shakti. So we need this information to show us. We have senses, and our senses are controlling us. The senses are controlled by devatas, by demigods. The devatas are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So where is the freedom? We act in a certain way, and we must get the reaction. So at every step, we're controlled. Our body is under control. Our mind is under control. So how do we respond in that way? How do we respond to that more particularly? How to live in this world, recognizing you're bound up, but at the same time acting for real freedom. This is what we should have in mind. So therefore, knowing how to move in this world, rather than just wandering, tasting varieties of happiness and distress that are imposed upon us by material nature. Rather than doing that, the bhakti yogi has a much higher purpose. All right. Any questions?